Joke's on him, because I have now been name-checked in this lawsuit.
When the movie was a hit, but she wasn't seen as a hit, she was seen as the problem, that's when everything went south. She then assumed it was Justin retaliating, which it wasn't. It wasn't.
First and foremost, I should tell you that I have a major scoop regarding Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, their newest legal plan. All right, guys, well, I am very pleased to announce that it's finally over. It's finally dead and over because of Blake Lively.
Candace Owens just torched Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds after they dragged her into their bizarre lawsuit. Blake straight up accused Candace of revealing the truth. The very truth she was desperately trying to bury. But Candace? She was already 10 steps ahead, unearthing damning details this Hollywood power couple never wanted public. And now, Blake is in full-blown panic mode. Let's break it down. Candace Owens was just minding her business on December 26th, scrolling through the latest Hollywood mess, when boom, her name pops up in Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' court filings. And get this! Candace had absolutely nothing to do with this lawsuit. They dragged her into it just because she dared to call out the absurdity of it all. But instead of losing her mind over it, Candace did what she does best: clowned them mercilessly. She called it a Christmas gift, and even joked that she might as well retire now. Because when a Hollywood A-lister and her equally self-righteous husband take the time to name-drop you in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, you've officially struck a nerve. And let's be clear, Candace Owens isn't some random keyboard warrior. She's a conservative firebrand who's made a career out of exposing hypocrisy. And that's exactly why she's now in the middle of this chaos. Blake and Ryan couldn't handle someone tearing apart their carefully manufactured victim narrative, so what did they do? Tried to smear her. Classic Hollywood move. What Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds failed to realize is that Candace Owens doesn't fold under pressure. And now, she's sitting front and center to watch their empire crumble. But here's the real kicker. Blake's desperate PR stunt didn't just fail, it completely backfired. Instead of turning Baldoni into some kind of villain, the internet flipped the script on her. People saw right through her act and realized this wasn't about justice, it was about control. And when she felt that control slipping, she pulled the ultimate desperation move, a protective order to bury the evidence. On March 10th, Blake's legal team rushed to request a protective order, trying to keep certain documents and details hidden. Now, in high-profile cases, that's not unusual. Nobody wants their bank statements or irrelevant personal details dragged through the mud. But here's where Blake got next-level shady. Instead of just filing a standard protective order, she demanded a modified version that included an attorney's eyes only clause, which meant that even Baldoni himself wouldn't be able to see some of the evidence being used against him. Read that again. The defendant in a $400 million lawsuit wouldn't even have access to the accusations being thrown his way. That's not legal strategy. That's a cover-up in broad daylight. And Blake's excuse? She claimed it was to protect third parties, like Taylor Swift, because revealing their private messages could cause them unfair harm. First of all, Taylor Swift isn't even part of this case. That was nothing more than a cheap stunt, a big-name distraction to justify hiding the truth. And let's not forget, this is the same woman who had zero problem leaking private texts to the New York Times when it suited her. But now, suddenly, she's all about privacy? The hypocrisy is off the charts. Baldoni's lawyers didn't waste a second calling Blake out. They laid it all out. Her real motive had nothing to do with protecting innocent people. This was about controlling what the public sees. She wanted to cherry-pick which details got leaked, only the ones that made her look good, while anything that exposed her lies got buried. Let's be real. This wasn't about third-party privacy. It was about saving Blake Lively's reputation. And that's exactly why Candace Owens got dragged into this mess. She saw through the smoke and mirrors, called out the hypocrisy, and that set Blake and Ryan off. Instead of just ignoring her, they pulled her into the lawsuit, trying to paint her as some kind of Baldoni mouthpiece. They even quoted one of her late-night tweets in their court filings, where she summed up the entire situation in a few brutal words. And that's what really got under their skin. They knew she was exposing the truth, and they couldn't stand it. Blake's legal team even tried lumping Candace in with Perez Hilton, pushing the ridiculous idea that she was part of some coordinated media attack against them. But Candace? She shut that nonsense down immediately. She laughed it off, calling it the pathetic smear attempt that it was. She made it crystal clear she has zero connection to Baldoni, and this was just Blake and Ryan desperately reaching to spin the narrative. Blake thought she could manipulate the media, control public perception, and walk away looking like the perfect Hollywood victim. But instead, she exposed herself as a fraud. She leaked private texts to destroy Baldoni's reputation, then ran to the court begging for her own messages to be protected. And while she played the traumatized victim, her husband was out here cracking jokes about the lawsuit. The hypocrisy couldn't be louder. And when people like Candace Owens started calling out the contradictions, Blake panicked, hard. Instead of owning up to her hypocrisy, she ran straight to legal intimidation, trying to silence anyone exposing the truth. And Candace's so-called crime? Telling it like it is. That's it. She didn't forge evidence, she didn't leak private texts to manipulate headlines, and she sure as hell didn't go crying to the courts, demanding special treatment. Nope. All she did was drop facts, and that alone was enough to send Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds into a total meltdown. Candace did what she does best. She ripped apart the hypocrisy, exposed the lies, and obliterated the weak attempts to shut her down. She didn't just sit back, she took it to her podcast and absolutely roasted this absurd lawsuit. And get this, that one tweet from Candace, it sent Blake's entire legal team spiraling. They weren't panicking over new evidence or scrambling to strengthen their case. Nope. Their biggest concern? That Candace Owens had cracked the code and put their game on blast. And instead of just ignoring her, like any rational person would, Blake and Ryan actually quoted her tweet in their official legal filings. Think about that for a second. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, two Hollywood millionaires with endless PR resources and top-tier legal teams, were so shaken by a single Candace Owens tweet that they felt the need to bring it up in court. That's not just desperation, that's a full-blown PR crisis. Blake and Ryan's grand argument that Candace Owens was spreading misinformation, which is beyond ironic, considering Blake herself leaked private texts to manipulate the media, and because their legal strategy was already crumbling, they grasped at straws, throwing in a ridiculous claim that Candace and Perez Hilton were somehow orchestrating a media attack against them. Because, of course, when Blake's carefully crafted victim narrative starts falling apart, the only possible explanation is a massive conspiracy against her, not the fact that people are simply calling out her hypocrisy. Candace's response? Absolutely brutal. She laughed in their faces, making it loud and clear that she has never spoken to Baldoni or his legal team. Then, she mocked the absurdity of their claim, even sarcastically calling Baldoni her long-lost cousin, just to emphasize how ridiculous it all was. But she didn't stop there. Instead of backing down, she flipped the script and celebrated the fact that she was now officially part of Hollywood's latest legal circus, joking, "I'm in the lawsuit now! My name is in legal documents! Mom, I made it!" Blake and Ryan thought they could intimidate her, but all they did was hand her more ammunition to completely roast them. And then there's Ryan Reynolds, the man who seriously needs to pick a lane. Because right now, he's looking like the biggest hypocrite in Hollywood. Let's break down Ryan Reynolds' role in this absolute mess. At first, he played the devoted husband, standing by Blake's side as she accused Baldoni of ruining her life. But then, when it was convenient for him, he mocked the entire lawsuit on Saturday Night Live like it was some kind of joke. So which is it, Ryan? Is this a serious legal battle that requires privacy and protection like your lawyers claim? Or is it something to laugh about in front of millions? Because you can't have it both ways. Instead of just quietly supporting his wife, Ryan jumped at the chance to make a joke out of the whole situation. On national television, no less. At the SNL 50th anniversary special, where the whole world was watching, he took a moment that should have been about celebrating comedy and turned it into a personal PR stunt. Yes, Ryan, your wife is supposedly traumatized by all of this, and your big move is to turn it into a joke? Make it make sense. And of course, the internet wasted no time calling him out for being a massive hypocrite. Because let's be real, you can't sit there claiming your wife is deeply suffering while also mocking the lawsuit for cheap laughs. But hey, that's Hollywood for you. Everything's a performance. Fans immediately started dragging him online for being fake as hell. Social media exploded with nicknames. Some started calling him Fake Lively, because at this point, he's just as much of an actor off-screen as he is on-screen. Others dubbed him Crying Ryan, pointing out how he loves to play the victim when it suits him but has no problem making jokes when it boosts his public image. And let's not forget, Blake and Ryan's entire argument is that this lawsuit is so serious, so traumatizing, and so damaging that they need a special legal order to keep everything secret. But apparently, it's not that serious if Ryan's out here cracking jokes about it on live TV. People quickly caught on. Ryan Reynolds isn't interested in justice. He's interested in controlling the narrative. If he and Blake actually believed they were in the right, they wouldn't be so obsessed with silencing critics and shutting down voices like Candace Owens. Blake and Ryan love playing the Hollywood victim card, expecting everyone to just sit back, nod along, and accept whatever version of the truth they choose to feed the public. But Candace Owens, she wasn't about to let that slide. That's why she obliterated Hollywood's fake feminism in one of the most brutal roasting sessions ever. She dismantled Blake's entire PR stunt with a single savage sentence. You cry victim in the media, but control what gets leaked? You can't have it both ways. And that's the real issue here. Blake and Ryan don't actually want transparency. They don't want fairness. They want total control over what the public sees. They want to cherry-pick which documents are revealed, which quotes make headlines, and who is allowed to speak. That's why they tried to silence Baldoni. That's why they dragged Candace into their mess. And that's why they panicked the moment people started asking real questions. Then Candace turned her sights on Hollywood's so-called feminists, the ones who only care about women's rights when it benefits them. She called out Blake's hypocrisy for using feminism as a shield, pretending to be this fragile, helpless victim, when in reality, she's weaponizing the legal system to destroy someone's career. And this, Candace made clear, is exactly what fake feminism looks like. It's not about justice. It's about power. It's about control. It's about making sure the rich and famous always get to tell their side of the story, while everyone else is forced to stay silent. Candace exposed it all. Every contradiction, every manipulation, every outright lie. She pointed out how Blake's legal arguments directly contradict her public statements. How her PR team has been leaking information while crying about privacy. And most importantly, she made the world see the truth. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are not victims. This isn't about feminism. This isn't about protecting women. This is about two Hollywood elites panicking because the truth is about to come out. And instead of owning up to their actions, they're pulling every dirty trick in the book to silence anyone who dares to call them out. Here's the reality. Candace Owens didn't attack Blake Lively. She exposed her. And the only reason Blake is spiraling right now is because she got caught. She thought she could control the media. She thought she could manipulate public perception. She thought she could drag Candace into this mess and scare her into silence. But here's the thing. Candace Owens doesn't back down, ever. And now that she's officially in the fight, she's not going anywhere. Social media completely torched them, and they deserved every second of it. Within hours, the hashtags #FakeLively and #CryingRyan were trending, and let's be honest, those names fit perfectly. Blake has been exposed as nothing more than a Hollywood manipulator, twisting narratives to paint herself as the victim while hiding behind carefully crafted legal strategies. And Ryan? He's just there for damage control, acting like the supportive husband, while turning the whole lawsuit into a joke on national television. Fans immediately started calling out Blake's real game, accusing her of using this lawsuit as a career move. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. Before this entire legal disaster, she was just another actress trying to stay relevant. But suddenly, she's positioned herself as a victim, and Hollywood loves a good sob story. Blake Lively cried about being silenced, made dramatic claims about injustice. And just like that, she's back in the headlines. Convenient, isn't it? Except now, the legal documents are exposing her contradictions. While Baldoni's case kept gaining traction, Blake's entire argument started falling apart at the seams. Suddenly, the same woman who wanted the whole world to believe her story was now desperately fighting to keep key information hidden. Why? Because the truth was turning against her. At first, Hollywood's usual media puppets were all in, pushing the Blake Lively, the brave survivor narrative. But the second real journalists started digging deeper, pulling court filings, analyzing PR leaks, and spotting blatant contradictions, even they couldn't ignore the mess. It didn't take long for the headlines to shift from sympathy to skepticism. Reporters started asking real questions. If Blake truly wanted transparency, why was she begging for a protective order? If she was so traumatized, why was Ryan joking about it on national television? And if this was really about justice, why did she leak private texts to the media before the case even started? Then came the legal experts and, surprise, surprise, they weren't buying her story either. The more they analyzed the filings, the more obvious it became. Blake's case wasn't just weak, it was crumbling. Even lawyers openly stated that her contradictory statements were making it harder to take her claims seriously. And when the narrative started collapsing, her legal team had only one move left: bury the evidence and pray no one notices. Which brings us to March 10th, the day everyone's waiting for. That's when the judge will decide whether Blake gets to keep everything buried or if the truth finally comes out. And let's be real, if she was telling the truth, wouldn't she want everything out in the open? But no, she's terrified of that happening. Her entire legal strategy is built around controlling the narrative, cherry-picking what gets released and burying anything that exposes her contradictions. If the judge rules against her, she's in serious trouble. And then, of course, there's the Taylor Swift factor. Because apparently, Blake couldn't just ruin her own reputation. She had to drag Taylor's name into it too. Her legal team actually argued that third parties, like Taylor Swift, could be unfairly harmed if certain documents became public. Now, let's take a second to think about that. Taylor Swift isn't even involved in this lawsuit. So why is Blake so desperate to keep her messages hidden? What's in those texts that she doesn't want the world to see? If Baldoni's legal team subpoenas them, we might finally uncover just how deep this PR manipulation goes. Maybe we'd even see how much of this entire case was scripted from the start. Meanwhile, Candace Owens is just sitting back, watching it all crumble. If Blake thought that dragging Candace into this lawsuit would silence her, she seriously underestimated who she was dealing with. Candace has already made it loud and clear. She's fully invested in exposing Hollywood's corruption, and this is just the beginning. This case has become the perfect example of how Hollywood elites weaponize the legal system to protect themselves while silencing anyone who challenges them. Blake and Ryan thought they could control the narrative, but instead, they dug themselves into an even deeper hole. Instead of burying the truth, they shined a massive spotlight on it. Instead of silencing Candace Owens, they gave her even more reason to keep talking. And instead of winning public sympathy, they've become a full-blown joke on social media. At this point, Candace Owens is officially part of the lawsuit narrative. And let's be real, she's loving every second of it. Meanwhile, Blake and Ryan are scrambling behind the scenes, desperately trying to spin this disaster into something salvageable. But the reality? There's no way out. They started this mess and now they're stuck in it. Hollywood elites love playing the victim while silencing their critics, but this time, it's backfiring. Blake dragged Candace into this lawsuit, thinking it would shut her up. But all she did was give her the perfect opportunity to expose everything. And Candace? She's not backing down. She's already promised to keep going. And at this point, Blake has no idea what's coming for her. Because now that the truth is out, there's no getting rid of Candace Owens. The reality is, Blake and Ryan aren't upset about lies being spread about them. They're furious that the truth is finally being exposed. And Candace? She's not going anywhere. Now that she's officially part of this ridiculous Hollywood saga, she's going to keep exposing every single contradiction, every manipulation, and every act of hypocrisy she sees. Blake Lively wanted to play the game, but she just made the biggest mistake of her career. She picked a fight with someone who isn't afraid to call her out. Blake and Ryan thought they could control the narrative, but Candace Owens just blew it all wide open. This Hollywood disaster is far from over, and you can bet more secrets are about to spill. Blake and Ryan thought they could control the narrative, but now the truth is out, and it's not going away. If you want more truth bombs and to stay ahead of the next twist in this messy saga, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. See you in the next one.